right, what we're talking about today is writing fractions as percents. And so first of all, we have to remember that a percent is just a decimal, so 5% is written as 0.05. 20% is 20 cents and is written as 20 cents, okay? So when I have a fraction, now the question is, how do I get it to a decimal, which will allow me to get it to my percent? And so let's say I have the fraction, hold on. So let's say I have the fraction 1/6. And what you do is you just do what it says. It says to divide. It says 1 divided by 6. And so I'm going to use my calculator to be able to do that. So when I typed it in my calculator, I got 0.116. So this is going to round to this 6. Is going to be rounded by looking at this number. So it's 0.17. So it's 17%. All right, so let's look at another one. Let's get a different color. Let's look at 2 3/8. So what I do is I know that this big 2 is going to go in front of the decimal. So really, the only thing you have to focus on is this here. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that in the calculator by doing 3 divided by 8, and then we'll see what we get. All right, and when I plug this one in the calculator, it wasn't repeating, so I can just write this whole thing. This is 37 cents, and so it's 2.375. And then again, if I want to turn that into percent, that's going to become 237%. And this number, remember that's the last number, but I need to include it. So it's going to be 237.5%. So when you're going from a fraction to percent, remember you just divide like it says. Or when you're going from a fraction to a decimal. And then once you have the decimal, you can rewrite it as the percent. So now if I'm going the other way, if I have a decimal and I need to get a fraction, so let's say I have 0.32. Well, remember this number is the tens, and this number is the hundreds. And so since there's two numbers, that's the hundreds. So it's 32 over 100. And then you have to reduce it. And so I'm dividing both of them by 2, and I get 16 over 50. Well, they could be divided by 2 again. And so I get 8 over 25. And so that's how you would write a decimal as a fraction. All right, let's do another one. This time I'm going to have a whole number too, so it's going to be a mixed fraction. And so what we're going to do is, let's just do 4 and, oops, it's not supposed to be, it's supposed to be a decimal. So let's do 4.08. So I know that my whole number's 4, but then I have to figure out what goes here. I have to write 8, but again, this is tens, this is the hundreds, so that means it has to go over 100. And now I can reduce. And so I get 4 and 2 over 50. Well, I can reduce again. And I get 4 and 1 over 25. But again, you look to see how many you have. And so this is the 3 was the tens, the 2 was the hundreds. So since it was the hundreds, that's why I had to put my fraction over 100. Same thing happened here. I had the tens and I had the hundreds. So since it was 100, I put it over 100, and the whole number came to the front. All right, let's try doing some examples down here. So the first thing you need to do is determine the percent value. And then what we're going to do is we are also going to rewrite as a fraction, I'm going to give you 2%. So why don't you go ahead and pause the video and try 1, 2, 3, and 4 by the first type of problem where you're dividing. All right, so for the first one, you should have done 2 divided by 5, which gives you 0.4, which is 40 cents. So as a percent, it's 40%. For number 2, when I do 3 divided by 7, I got this decimal point, 42857. You don't need to write all those. You need to look here and see what happens. This 8 is going to round it up to 0.43, which is 43%. All right, for this one, 2, remember, is the whole number 2. And I hope you remember 1/3. That's one of the fractions that you need to memorize because you'll see it so frequently. 1/3 is 33. So that's $2.33. So that's 233%. And then 3 and 5/8, I have my whole number 3. And now I got to figure out what 5/8 is, which is 0.625. Again, I only need 2 numbers after the decimal, so I look at the third number and I would see what is going to happen. This is going to make it turn into $3.63, which is 363%. All right, so let's look at the next ones I want you to do, the last 2, rewrite as a fraction. So if I have the decimal 0.027, so 27 would give me 27 over, again, tens, hundreds. So it's over 100. And there's nothing that goes into both of them, so I'm just going to circle it because I'm done. Now what happens if I have a problem where I just have one number? Let's say I have 0.8. So since there's one number, it's just the tens. So then I put 8 over 10, and then I'm going to reduce it, which is 4 over 5. The last thing that could happen is, let's just make sure you understand what happens if you have 3 numbers after the decimal. And so let's do one more here, 7. So let's say I have 2.107. Well, this is the tens. This one's the hundreds. So this one has to be the thousands. So it's going to be a big 2, the whole number 2, and then 107 over 1,000. And there's nothing that goes into 107 and 1,000, so we're good. All right, last thing I want to do is I want to look at this table. So you have to be able to write it as a decimal and then a percent. I always try and write the decimal first. So I'm going to type in 2 divided by 7 in the calculator. And I get 0.2857. So really, I'm going to make that, I'm going to look at this 5, and it's going to make that 0.29, which 0.29 is 29 cents. So that's 29%. When I'm given the decimal, that's nice because that's 35 cents. So 35%. Here, I need to find the fraction. I'm going to have some space over here because these take up a little bit more space. So 35 is on top. Again, tens, hundreds. So it's over 100. So I can divide both by 5. And I get 7 over 20. And there's nothing that divides into any of those, so it's just 7 over 20. Last one, 12%. Well, 12% is written as 12 cents. And so again, have to give myself some space. It's going to be 12 over. There's the tens, there's the hundreds, over 100. So I'm going to divide by 2. And I get 6 over 50. And I got to divide by 2 again. And I get 3 over 25. So remember, when you're going from a fraction to a decimal, you just use your calculator and divide. We don't need to focus on long division. And then when you're going the other way, you have to look and see how many numbers there are, if it's the tens, hundreds, thousands, and that will tell you what number to put on the bottom of your fraction.